have you smoked, Mr. Barlow?
Oh, since I was a kid, 15, 16. Terrible, I know, but there you go.
Did you feel you could confront your wife without having a cigarette first?
No way.
And why did you smoke it in the ginnel rather than outside the pub?
Because Norris and Mr. Cole and Miss Taylor were still there, and the landlady doesn't like it. Not that that bothered me.
This is all rehearsed.
Why did you tell your wife everything? Why didn't you sugarcoat it?
Because if I had any chance at all of saving my marriage, I had to get there first, before Tina did.
What did you think Tina would do?
I thought she was going to storm round there and tell her everything in her own words, you know.
When?
Right then. You know, that night.
No, he didn't. He thought she was already dead.
What did your wife say in response to this shocking and unexpected confession?
Well, she wanted to know when it started.
How did you answer?
I just told her the truth. It had happened on our wedding night. She'd had a few too many drinks and she was already in bed, and that's when I first kissed Tina.
And who else knew about this unsavoury little detail?
Nobody.
Not your friend, Mr. MacDonald?
No, nobody except Tina.
Nobody except Tina. So you only revealed this damning detail because you were convinced Miss McIntyre was about to provide it herself, and sooner rather than later?
Yes, exactly.
What did your wife say?
She was stunned, you know. Furious. And then she stormed out. She said she was going to have it out with Tina.
Screaming various threats, as we've already heard.
Yeah, she was upset. We all say things we don't mean. You know, he was laughing his head off. He was dying for a drink.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. What did you do then?
My friend, Steve MacDonald, he sat with me, and but he was mainly worried about his missus finding out that he knew about the affair.
And when did you leave?
When everybody started saying that something was happening outside, they were saying there's an ambulance. How did you react? Just the same as everybody else. I went out to see what was happening. I mean, I didn't even think of Tina at all. You know, I had all these things tumbling through my mind about what I'd just said. And then I just saw her being put into an ambulance.
How did you feel?
I was shocked. And confused. She was a nice person, and you know, she made us. It was a mistake getting involved with me. I know that, and I tried to tell her that. But it was over between us, so why would I go and kill her? It's not in me.
Peter Barlow was a bookmaker. A man you might consider well used to weighing up the odds. Isn't that what he did on the night of the 26th of May, 2014? Didn't he spread his bets? First, he agreed to run away to Portsmouth with his mistress. Then, circumstances changed. A drop, no doubt, during his subsequent attempt to dispose of all incriminating evidence. We've learned how this led to the discovery of a silver-top hat, the missing charm, along with traces of Miss McIntyre's blood, placing the burglar at number 1 Coronation Street, Peter Barlow's parents' home address. The defendant was on a losing streak. His various vices, adultery, alcoholism, deceitfulness, had finally caught up with him. A bright, popular, vivacious young woman with her whole life ahead of her, killed. And nothing we have heard in this court contradicts the fact that Peter Barlow, and Peter Barlow alone, was responsible. A liar, A man we have heard could never be trusted. A manipulative, serial seducer. Do not let Peter Barlow seduce you.
You may consider that when Miss McIntyre was attacked later on that evening, Mr. Barlow was in the back room of the Rover's Return public house, telling his wife the truth. So you must ask yourselves this crucial question. Why would Mr. Barlow confess to damning and humiliating details that only Miss McIntyre would have known if he himself already thought her to be dead? Does that sound like the next logical step for a man who's just committed murder? The murder of the only other person who could verify these details. This illogical leap must not be underestimated. Indeed, it is a leap, is it not? Yet to be credibly accounted for within this room. All part of his grand plan. An elaborate smokescreen. None of these hold water. And not a single piece of evidence says otherwise. His fingerprints were not found on the missing top hat charm. And despite being accused of transporting underneath his coat the blood-stained iron bar, no traces of blood were found on Mr. Barlow's coat. And nor did he stash any iron bar at his parents' outhouse, nor subsequently dispose of it elsewhere. Why? Because Peter Barlow did not attempt to take Miss McIntyre's life. Peter Barlow was elsewhere, telling his wife the truth.
You have also heard from witnesses stating that Mr. Barlow was seen entering and exiting Miss McIntyre's flat in an agitated state. From Mrs. Barlow, we have an account of the defendant's subsequent confession of his affair with Miss McIntyre. You've heard details of a brutal and heinous crime. You must decide whether you are sure Mr. Barlow is guilty of this crime. I urge you to base your decision only on the evidence you have heard in this case. You're not deciding whether Mr. Barlow is a bad man, an immoral man who deserves punishment for his various infidelities and foibles. You are deciding whether there is sufficient evidence to find Mr. Barlow guilty of the murder of Miss Tina McIntyre. Let me remind you that if the evidence you have heard does not make you sure of Mr. Barlow's guilt, you must arrive at a verdict of not guilty. And remember, your verdict must be unanimous. Will you please now retire?